Welcome to Allegedly Higher, where humor, insight, and passion collide with higher education. Hosted by Dr. Erin and Dr. Candace. Join them as they dive into headlines, interview leaders, and challenge norms. From dismantling systems to championing equity, this podcast is your go-to for transforming the ivory tower. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Allegedly Higher. My name is Dr. Erin Wheeler, your host, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Dr. Candace Jackson. How are you?
Everyone. Hello. I'm well. It's been a while.
It has been. We were trying. We're still trying to find our rhythm here. We want to record every week.
Yes.
Our multiple hats limit us to.
Life be lifing. That's what I can.
Yes. So we are always proud when we can get out an episode in some sort of consistent fashion. So it's been 2 weeks. But I'm well. I can't recall what happened last week. I think we were all just both tired. I was just trying to pull myself. I was like, if you're able to record, I am going to make myself present, right? So, but both of us was not in any kind of form or fashion to record last week. So, it was your first week of school, right?
Yeah, we got 2 weeks under our belt, 13 more to go. Already on countdown.
Never heard it described quite like that.
13 more to go. So yeah, that was, that's always taking, some time to get used to. New group of students. I have some repeat offenders in my classes. So that's what I always call them. I've always called them that. They're repeat offenders. But it seems like a really good group. I have and some great grad students this year. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the semester. So I will not be calling you going, Dr. Wheeler. So I haven't felt that way yet. So
okay. All I can offer you is moral support.
That's it.
Yeah. Between you, my sister, and my two friends that teach, I am confident that God's path. My path was headed to the classroom.
Yeah.
But God had said, just choose this fork in the road. Just go this way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been an interesting couple of weeks, but no, you are not missing anything.
Yeah. Well, I am I think that was I had a really productive week, and I think by Friday, because I do have a little bit of autonomy on my time, I have stayed up. Was last week the Democratic convention? I can't even keep up.
Oh my God, yes. So that was the thing, yes.
So I worked and I listened, which it probably went off at 11 o'clock Central Time. And that actually made me sit at this computer and get some work done. So I worked. I have two books. If you're watching us, it appears to be ghost books because I never have them present when I'm at my desk and I'm recording. So it seems like I'm lying all the time. But I have two books that I wrote in the last past. Oh my God. 2018 and then 2020.
Yeah.
No, 2020. I can't remember. 2021.
Somewhere in there. It was like pandemic time in the second one.
Yeah. I wrote two books for first gen students, Go Wiser, Live Wiser. And I decided to brush the dust off and bring them back out, give it a new cover, try to promote it to get into as many programs and students' hands as I can and work on some ancillary material. So I'm a girl that likes to keep going forward. I don't like redos. Tell me the first time. Give me all the feedback so I can correct and get as much as I can to the 100%. And let me go on to something else, right? So I don't like going back. So this is truly a challenge for me. But it's exciting because we didn't have AI then. We didn't have like I was just in a different headspace.
Yeah, but the world was different then. The world was different. So I think going back sometimes allows us to kind of reevaluate some things. Not that there's everything that you said in there in Go Wise, it still applies, but the world has changed in some ways, and in the ways in which we have to help students a little bit to think and conceptualize. And honestly, if I thought my grandson would read it, I would send it to him. And he should, and I am gonna send him a copy because he started school. But I think every first year experience program should have your book.
Yeah. I also think I need to do an audio. That would be good.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm going back and doing a re-edit of my first novel and trying to do some developmental things and flesh out some things because I was still very much nervous about writing. And so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I have a Diddy reference in there, which is crazy.
Yeah, you gotta take that out. Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to though.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it was a Diddy Biggie. So if I'm taking out,
it
was the reference where, what, 1998, and me and my sister watching MTV video countdown, and they intro that what's the Biggie, can't you see? Hypnotized.
Yeah.
The Hypnotized video and the intro, that cinematic intro where they're driving backwards in a car, like that reverse.
I remember that.
I used that to intro the chapter on I can't even remember the title. I'm sad. I have to do better. It was really about doing it in reverse of how I teach, how I teach career planning is like go out as far as you can in your life when you're what kind of life do you want and draw it all the way back to now, and you can trace your steps instead of doing it the way I did it and completely mess things up for me. We worked it out, but yeah, that was a reference.
Okay.
So technically Diddy is still relevant.
Yeah.
To the students now for all the bad things, but yeah, I don't know if there's a better
cautionary tale. Definitely cautionary tale.
Yeah. Man, put a little asterisk at the bottom. Does not condone or approve any of
the
these alleged actions.
No. Okay.
Although we knew it back then. Well, let's get into We Outside Pop Culture segment.
Okay. I love it.
As we were preparing for this, I usually will bookmark things as I'm scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, but I put myself on timeout. So I have an actual app that only gives me 30 minutes. It has to be, I have to catch it either between the hours of 12 and 1 or after 5.
Yeah.
But I only have 30 minutes. I can either use up all my 30 minutes between 12 and 1, or I could like do a little bit during lunch, and then after 5, that's my like wind down, cool down.
So you only get an hour a day?
No, 30 minutes.
30 minutes a day.
And I just so happen to have found the pocket of time during the day.
Yeah.
To open it, or open it after 5. And then if it's after 5, all I get is 30 minutes or whatever I have left over.
Girl, I would have thrown that phone across the wall. Open it up.
And as soon as you open it, it closes, and it gives you a quote about time.
This bill, you're not gonna tell me how long I could be out. Oh no, ma'am. Oh no, ma'am. I need.
So it's been working. And if I have to do research for this or for anything else, like I have to schedule all of my posts through something else for business. And if I want to look up stuff, I have to use my computer, which is no fun on the computer, right?
Right. No.
So my We Outside pop culture segment
Okay.
has taken a hit. I'm not outside no more.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So some of these are definitely brought to you by Dr. Jackson, who is in these TikTok streets heavy these
I
days.
love it. I love it. That is my absolute favorite. I don't know what we're gonna do when they shut it down.
I don't know.
Um,
What's the timeline on that? I don't even want to devote any energy, although I could be
no
like the
timeline is
demure.
ever. They
You
don't
don't
know.
think you don't
No.
think they're gonna shut it down?
No. Too many people are making money on TikTok.
That and then news, uncensored news that needs to get out from like the West Bank or any of these other countries or people who are oppressed gets out. Like
Yeah.
they can get the news out quicker on TikTok, which I'm happier about that than the
Well,
censor.
I think the real problem is how do as much as we talk about America being free and a land of free information and dissemination and the right to free speech, we also like to control the narratives. And so
Yeah,
what happens when you have a platform which is fun, like, fun on some area in some areas, but has been really educational and global, um, made people much more globally aware about things that are happening in the world, then we can't control that. And so that means somebody else is controlling. And so, yes, there are things that are problematic about it. I get that part, but I think that that's, the real issue.
yeah.
Somewhat like why they didn't leak, they always trying to, they were criminalizing marijuana, because they couldn't figure out, until they could figure out how to tax it, they wouldn't, legalize
It's
it.
illegal.
Yeah.
Just illegal. Um, so in other ways, I'm protecting my peace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I've been really sticking to this. It's two
Yeah.
things on here that I'm like, you know what? I'm just not gonna do. And the
You're just like,
first are the Braxtons.
the Braxtons are back, ladies and gentlemen. The Braxtons are back, and I am I love Toni Braxton with it. Like, her songs come on, it's not a skip. There's not a skip,
No,
not at
no.
all. I think the first show, Braxton Family Values, who was rough. But that happens when you have a house full of 6 women, Mama, Evelyn, and the 5 girls. Listen, Mr. Braxton messed up. You know, I think I also gelled with them on that.
Yeah.
But and the brother's like, you know what? I'm gonna live my life. I'm gonna go take to tend to these patients, and I'm out.
Yeah, he's protecting his peace at all
And
costs.
his peace, his anonymity, his life.
Him and Rob Kardashian. I salute them both.
You are great people. You're great. But this one I think starts off, they said that this is something that Tracy really wanted them to do again. And rest in peace to Tracy Braxton, who died of esophageal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the aftermath of that, and in trying to process their grief. And I think having lost so recently and so much in the last couple of years, in the last really decade of my life, it was really speaking to me. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
Trina Braxton, um, Trina's having a hard time. She was there when she took her last breath. And so
I thought everyone wasn't.
I know Trina was there, and they kept telling Trina that you're too emotional, you may not be able to handle it, and she really can't. And she's really processing it and the loss of it, and it struck a chord with me. Like, if I could talk to Trina, I would probably, we talk about these people with their first names like we know them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when my aunt passed in 2023, I was there, and I know I've told you this story, but we took a nap. Everybody in the house took a nap. We were tired, and I got up at literally at 1 o'clock. So we'll sleep from 11 to 1. My eyes pop open at 1 o'clock. You know, you close your eyes and you say, a couple of more minutes and then I'm going to get up. Spirit said, get up, get up, get up. I went in, I watched her. The breathing had changed. So what they call the death rattle had started. And it was really, I sat there. I read the 23rd Psalm to her. I told her, said my goodbyes. I woke my aunt up. I said, it's time. And she said her goodbyes. And we watched her take her last breath and cry her last tear. And for me, it was the most beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in watching them process the grief in the first couple of episodes, and little Kevin, Tracy's son, is going through a couple of things. And I mean, you know, they put this out there for the world. He's going through a divorce. He's lost his mom. It's so much for him in this moment. They're estranged from her husband, and then trying to figure out again, Tony, the peacemaker, the older sister, trying to figure out, you know, the different stages of grief and the loss, because everybody loses in a family. When you lose one member of your family, everybody's grieving in their own way because they all had their different experience and relationship with that person.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I was so heartbroken for Trina, because not just that you lost your sister. That's a different kind of thing. I lost my aunt, she lost her sister, but the loss has taken over the beauty of that moment. Like you were there to share, you know, to share that with her. And I hope that she can get to that point. Other than and other than that, I'm trying to, you know, beyond the grief part, we know, and I look forward to the antics and the stupidity and the foolishness. The TikTok historians and pop culture reviewers are always talking about Mama Evelyn being the villain in the story, but it neither here nor there. In this grief, in this moment in time, I hope that they can see how precious that moment was. I hope Trina can see eventually how precious that moment was. And then and she's getting a little flack because she was also grieving grieving her ex-husband's death. Now, you know, as awful as he was on the show, and we don't know the full picture, you're grieving somebody who you lost very early. You know, you there is no, not to get back together, because she's already started dating her current husband, but that was still somebody who had been a father to your children, that was still somebody you shared a life with. She has the right to grieve. And I think for her, losing him, and then not losing him as a lover, but she'd already mourned that. She'd already moved on. But losing him,
but they were good friends after that. And I think she I don't know if they had any contact when he was sick, because I think it happened all of a sudden. But
I think
thought that was fair.
Yeah. I think people have to understand that just because you are no longer with someone romantically doesn't mean that you don't mourn the loss of someone as a human being. Now, there are a couple of people I'm just gonna go, I hate that for your family. I hate that for your family. Because they loved you. I do not. But, you know, and there are a couple of people that I know that I'm not going to go into deep mourning. I am going to mourn for their family members who I care for. But I don't know. I think that was a little harsh, but I think a lot of people do not understand when you have blended families that it's always blended. There's no way. You know, I have a big blended family, and we all love each other, and we mourn and celebrate, and you create a life. So even if something happened and that blended family gets fractured, I'm not going to not care about the same people that I've been related to for the last 35 years.
Yeah. I just hated that when that's why you should not make up, like, this is not me talking about if a family member has utterly done you wrong, abused you.
Right.
Just disrupt your peace. I'm not talking about that. But you do have to say, did we lose time bickering over nothing? because I did see, and I quit watching it. When I say I've started to protect my peace, well, one, because WeTV had done stuff like I had my sisters log in. So toward the end of the Braxton Family Values, I did not watch it, one, because I didn't have access, but I didn't even care because I saw the show going downhill. I was tired of, like, I knew Tamar had needed to be in somebody's rehab, inpatient therapy long before that. And I'm a Tamar fan. I love Tamar. And hoping for her growth. Like, I'm excited for where she is, but I do know she has more to do. Right. But when I heard that the news of Tracy passing, I mourn that they lost time as a family. What if this reality TV wasn't a thing?
Right.
What if they never fell out behind stuff? Like, they would have had more time together. And maybe losing Tracy wouldn't have been so hard, and you regretting that I lost time with my sister over something so minor and petty in the grand scheme of things.
Right. I think that's part of sometimes in our mourning process, that we mourn time and the loss of time and the time that we had that we squandered, right? And I think that's pretty much where all of them should be. They were sometimes.
But I hate that they didn't learn the lesson, because Tamar and Tawanda are still at it.
No, they didn't.
And that's why I'm not looking at it. I'll get the clips, but I can't devote much time to it unless the season ends differently than what I think it's going to be.
I do hope that for them, but I'm really concerned about Trina being able to process that. And the beauty of that moment, even in the loss. And I miss my aunt every day. I miss my mama every day. But the beauty of the time that you had, the beauty of being able to be there, and literally we got the song, the gospel song, cried her last tear, to watch my aunt go home was so beautiful. And I hope that at some point during the season and during her own processing, that she realizes what a gift that was.
Yeah. Especially they were thick as thieves.
Oh yeah.
Trina and
still in Maryland. So
yeah.
And I think they were probably closer. And I think even the anger that they are, and the estrangement that they have with her husband, is based in their grief. And when they have to realize that he's grieving the loss of his wife of all of those years, they're grieving their sister, but the relationships are so different. And I think we all have to understand that sense in grief and experiencing when we lose and experience, so
yeah.
Hopefully they'll get over it. Yeah. They'll get to that place. They'll get over that's what I mean. They get over the squabbling to really get down to brass tacks. Because Tracy wasn't that person. No matter what they did to Tracy
she
would always say, I love my sisters. I love my sisters. So she is not pleased with the change of events. I can assure you.
Yeah. Another thing that I did not watch to protect my peace was, and I love the Breakfast Club. Like,
you got me with the Breakfast Club.
That is part of my day. Is if I don't watch the whole show, I go and watch the clips, the interviews. Like, that was my thing. I love a good mixture of wit, intellectual debate, craziness. Give me all of that, right? Yep. And so one of the Breakfast Club interviews that I absolutely did not watch was the Tyrese Breakfast Club interview.
I love Tyrese. You ain't gonna ever make me not like Tyrese.
I like Tyrese in Transformers. I like Tyrese in Baby Boy. I like Tyrese in Sweet Lady.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I can't. I want him to get whatever help he needs.
Listen.
And or else he's going to end up like Kanye. That's another place where grief
We'll
if you're not set on a solid foundation mentally and emotionally, when I heard his mom passed away, I was like, oh, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. The first time I heard this single, I don't think you ever really loved me. When I tell you,
I turned it on the first verse.
A choke hold, baby. The truest, rawest song I think he's ever. I mean, Tyrese. Listen, I'm old enough to remember when he was on that bus singing the Coco song. Okay, I remember when the commercial premiered. All right, I don't think you were you born yet. Like,
don't play me. I was born. I was born and I was here, and I do know that I do know him from the Coca-Cola commercial.
Listen, I'm telling you, I even, and I rarely get on that X platform. I rarely do.
This is when it was Twitter.
That's when it was.
I think it was Twitter.
But I am, I'm looking for it now because, listen, her
and Tyrese tweet back and forth.
They on this at least. Listen, because in my head we friends. And so on March 24th, 2023, I said, so Tyrese, this thing is giving on the date, baby. I know because I don't do it that often. It's giving Marvin Gaye's "Here My Dear." I had to sit for a moment in the pain of it, in the rawness of his revelation. And he liked it. So I was good with that. Listen. I am. So I watched it. I watched the clip, and you asked the question. And Tyrese also has always been open and honest about his emotions.
Too much. And I do love to see, especially Black males, in touch with their emotion.
Yeah. I mean, we
I don't want to be hypocritical. I don't want to be.
I think we have to. And as he said, and I think it made Charlamagne the God uncomfortable. He was like giving him tea. He's like, I don't need no tissue. You ask the question, don't ask the question, right? And how are you doing? And
wait, let me preface this.
Okay.
I saw the clip of the tissues.
Right, you saw that clip. Okay.
That alone made me say, I'm not going back to watch this interview. So let me get this straight. Charlamagne always starts off, since he's been on his mental health kick, of asking everybody, how are you doing really? Those tears started at that question at 0-0 the interview.
He was no, they didn't. But I think in the conversation in the
2 minutes into it,
pretty much. It's a short interview, but when you do a project like this, was March of 2023. So now you're talking about it. You're being asked about the divorce. He's being asked about life now. How are you doing? You got to go and process this. I would rather him cry at the Breakfast Club than smack somebody on national TV.
True.
You know what I mean? So I really want, I like the fact that he's addressing it and unapologetically. Like when a couple separates, get divorced, everybody will, oh, how's she gonna handle it? How she's doing? She's got the kids, she's got the da-da-da-da. And it's difficult. It is a death, right? You got to grieve it. And then as you're going on this circuit and everybody wants to know your business because you put it out there, because he's done Shay Shay. So I don't know if I haven't seen all of the Shay Shay interview, but he said, but if they don't know, they can't ask, but it's always out there. And of course, I mean, he's got to relive it all. But I would rather him be honest about his emotions instead of trying to say, I'm okay. And then you smack somebody on national TV and lose have to build your whole career and reputation back up.
Yeah, I get it. Also, as I told you before, I also didn't want to hear DJ Envy say, Tyrese, what you did, I could have really boxed your mouth for it. I'm uncomfortable with that statement. And so anytime I hear DJ Envy say that, I just black out and just like move on. Like that whole interview, because I knew they had to hash some stuff out as friends, and Tyrese, whatever. I was like,
yeah,
cut the show. I'm done. I never started, but I'm done.
Right. I think it's good. I think it's good to get it out emotionally. I think more men need to acknowledge and be able to. They need to feel
I
safe.
want him to sit on a certified, a licensed professional couch, though. I don't think he's done that.
Maybe not, but I really think
He's not getting any feedback back. That's the part. Be open with a therapist, a pastor.
Yeah.
Even in Yama. I don't know what she is these days, but
then who's gonna go see the movie? He's got to do. I think
but he can process there,
right,
and then he's able to share it in a way that helps somebody else. But at this point, he just looks like he's losing it.
Well, and he has, he will go on used to go on his IG rants and all of that, and it's painful to watch. But I think in this particular interview, he seems very much in tune with, this is the emotional space that I'm in. And you asked the question, but I think Charlamagne asked the question to get the information, but he wasn't prepared for the emotional response. And if you ask Tyrese that question, somebody gonna cry. It's like sitting in the old days. For those of you who don't remember, let me tell you, Barbara Walters used to do talk shows and interviews, and everybody would end up on the couch crying, and she would do the same thing. How are you really? I'm not gonna get my hair grounded. And so and all the tears. So because the goal was to get, and she would do the same. So Charlamagne ain't inventing this now, right? So Barbara Walters would have her specials, and they were big events to have these celebrities, and she make them cry. And everybody would come on there and say, "You're not gonna make me cry, Barbara." And what it happens? She makes them cry. She makes them get into that emotional space.
I say crack is whack.
But that was Diane Sawyer.
That was Diane. I thought that was Barbara.
Diane Sawyer was not a Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters would have had her not even being in the bravado. Barbara Walters would have said something to Whitney and say, no, we know the truth. We know the truth. It was a calm kind of thing, right? It wasn't argumentative. It wasn't, well, they say but I don't think Charlamagne was prepared for the emotion and worried about what people would say about him. But the thing, what was I thought beautiful in the clip in that particular moment was, no, you asked the question. I don't need the tissue. I'm okay with crying. And I want men to be in a vulnerable space where they have the space and the safety to cry if they need to cry.
So this is how I interpret. And I love brother Tyrese. I do. Mm-hmm. I saw that moment as, when the clips are cut, I'm an actor. I want these tears to be present. I want my shirt to be stained. I don't need, like, you can cry and dab, like cry and dab. Like that was dramatic.
He wasn't ugly crying now. He was just, the tears were flowing. He wasn't ugly crying.
Still, he wanted the dramatic effects of the tears streaming down his eyes, and he did not want the napkin, the tissues, to disrupt that.
It's actually more dramatic to do the dab. It's
not the triangle like Candace Potomac. The triangle where she dabbed it so like a sword, getting the tears out the duct before they even come out. But what I am, I love brother Tyrese. I love his songs. I'll go back now, see one interview that you need to see, where again I like a mixture of stupidity, ratchet, and intelligence. Tank podcast.
Oh, I love Tank.
His episode gave me a lot more insight into him. Mm-hmm. But it's also, of course, him and Tank in the TGT.
I think, yes.
That was
a market share. But it's you got somebody who grew up in this business. I mean, he was a kid. And
He told that story. That's one of the interviews I did like. I like him in that.
You like him in his happy moment, right?
Not necessarily happy. It was sometimes where he had to talk about hard things, but I felt like he was genuine. I don't want to see Tyrese. I don't.
Leave my baby alone.
But what I am excited for is his new movie, which is why he is crying. And
right.
I'll even watch. I think he has a interview with 85 South with Carlos and DC Young Fly.
Oh,
I'll even watch that before I watch this Breakfast Club interview. Because they actually told a funny story about how his mama got more money. He told him to act like he had a disability in the food stamp office so they can get more money. That's that kind of stuff. But he has a new movie produced by Snoop Dogg.
Love it.
Called 1992.
Okay.
And it is set in the middle of the aftermath of the Rodney King verdict, and he's trying to rebuild his life. Our Caucasian friend Ray Liotta,
yes,
is in it. It was one of his last movies, and Scott Eastwood, who I am not mistaken, he is Clint Eastwood's son. Mm-hmm. Okay. All three are in this movie. Is Ray Liotta's last movie before he recently passed away. So I'm excited to see that.
I am
him back on the screen.
Tyrese is a really good actor. And I watched that type. I know when they phone it in and when they're not. So I'm excited to see this. And even though we felt the riots, my aunt was in LA during the riots, the one that just passed, and in that area. So all of it brings it all home. I was in high school at the time, and I remember my teacher going, "Is this about the earthquakes?" You can tell she wasn't like us. But I'm always, it's kind of the 92 riots, the 65 Watts riots, all of those stories, and the humanity of the people who are going through and the pain of that. I think it's appropriate for a time that we're in. Yeah. And I'm glad they got the distribution deal. And of course, since Snoop produced it, and now he is the belle of the ball from the Olympics and torch bearing and all that good stuff. We love it. Whoever thought
from this picture in the courtroom,
murder was the case, baby. Murder was the case. To now you are hanging out
with Martha Stewart, like rubbing, like she is your best friend.
Like who would have thought?
It's a story. I love those stories. You have to grow. You have to grow, and you might have to change. But he's never changed his character. I think it was what he was, but he changed everything else. The people he was around, how he thought. I would like to take credit as a girl from the South. He came to No Limit Records. He said Master P helped him through that. So little Southern charms helped him.
But he's a Mississippi boy. So baby, we build them like that. We come around, they come around.
Come back to the South, see, you get your stuff together. So I'm excited about that. What I'm not excited about, and this is gonna be real quick, Drake is still taking weird selfies with duck lips.
Let me tell y'all something. That's who need to be at this point on somebody's couch. Okay. I know it's been a hard year, my brother. I know it's been a hard year. I mean, you lost. You lost something very powerful in public. To quite frankly, somebody who is a better lyricist and has a better production team and is historically much more in tune to his ethnicity, his race, his blackness. Let's just call it his blackness. And you got skewered a couple of times. You tried it. You got close, no cigar, and then your house flooded.
I believe we're gonna bring that up.
I can't imagine. That even though those things seem so disparate and so far apart, and I know sometimes it feels like you just keep stacking stuff. And then they got the BBL Drizzy, and it's just too much. It's just too much. This ain't the answer, bro.
Mm-hmm. In the words of our former colleague, go away.
Go away.
Go away.
Go sit down. Get back to being hungry, Drake again.
Niggas miss you.
Yeah. Be
because
hungry.
This is for all my dogs. That was I didn't even touch. I didn't even want it as suggestion on my title screen. Like, go away. I knew I wasn't listening to that trash.
Listen, I remember I was sitting in my office I can say this now because it's been so far since I've been there. I was sitting in my office at Tougaloo College, I was department chair at the time. And one of my students, who I just text with the other day, was doing quite well for herself. I'll call her D-Lo for the purposes of this podcast. So D-Lo comes running in. We going down to Hattiesburg, and we gonna go see Drake, because they are the Degrassi generation. I was like, who is that? They going to see Drake because he was performing at USM, fresh out the Degrassi wheelchair. Okay,
that's the Drake I like.
That's the hungry. So when I finally hear the music, I remember when he was like on a side of the Grammys, like up and coming artist. He's got on some Chuck Taylors, and he's on the side like, oh, I'm so happy to be here. You better get back to that, my brother. And I'm gonna call you my brother. I want you to. I want you to get back to the hungry Drake that actually didn't put out just whatever because somebody's gonna buy it, and your friends and your fans buying it because it's just you, but not necessarily the quality. And once you get back to that, you'll be fine. It'll stop happening. But what we're not gonna do is do weird selfies, because then that means we're gonna have to call the people, because they're gonna have to come get you, because you look at that point. I mean, in the words of Cedric the Entertainer, that ain't gangster. That ain't gangster. That is not that ain't gangster. Okay. All right.
What is not gangster? Is this the girl code? So last episode we talked about the game is having a baby with Evelyn Lozada's, I don't even think she's 30. She might be 30-year-old daughter.
Okay. She's grown.
And you mentioned he should have married the school teacher.
I did.
The school teacher is Tiffany Cambridge, who is the mother of his 3 children. I think that's all he has.
Listen, I'm so old. I watched the reality show. That's how.
Oh, I did. I enjoyed it. I forgot the name of it. I enjoyed it. But I'm glad she walked away. He ain't have no sense. He might be a little bit bitter. But I'm scrolling during my 30 minutes on Instagram, and I see that fans have bought up pictures to where Tiffany, the game's mother of his kids, was friends. Oh, I'm sorry, let me take that out. It's pictured at Evelyn Lozada's baby shower of this last baby that she had, which he might be 7, 8, maybe. Not only that, there's more pictures of Evelyn's daughter, Tiffany, Shawnee, and Evelyn, all in this group photo, casual, hanging out after girls night, that kind of picture. There's other pictures, but they put this side by side of a video saying, Evelyn saying, just because you see people in my pictures don't mean we friends. Do you think there was some kind of girl code broken?
There's so many codes broken. And I think some of them might even be like legal. Like, So which means you telling me that this baby who about to have games, baby, was a child.
She's a teenager. Young teenager. Child.
Child. And now you have so I think the larger issue is, first of all, there's so many issues to unpack here.
Because it easily could have been Uncle Game.
It might have been, right? So because she was the kid. And so this chasing of youth, sir, you almost half 100. Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. But what she and again, if she was trying to have lifelong security, she could have gone a little bit higher than that.
If
But
he's not, he's about to get his house taken, so he might be living with her.
oh
You remember I told you
yeah,
Rick Ross talked about him getting his house taken in the lawsuit, the sexual assault lawsuit.
I think definitely some girl code, but I think even responding to that in that way, you all were friends. You may not be friends now after she finds out that your daughter, the child that she bought birthday gifts and went to parties with, and all of that, is now sleeping with her father, the father of her children. But if Evelyn wanted to respond, and Evelyn for some reason has not learned how to do this in
She
all
not.
years
I
of
was
reality
rooting for
television.
her. Her and Tamar in the same box for me. I want to see them grow.
Rooting for you. I think that, and a lot of people don't seem to understand. You can either not say anything, or you can say, yes, we were friends, but people evolve and they grow apart, or just, here's the thing, say nothing.
Say nothing.
Because
My
it's
daughter
very
makes
clear
my daughter makes her own choices.
she's
He
an
makes his
adult
own choice.
woman,
They are both consenting adults.
and you know you don't have to then throw as if you were never friends with this woman. Yes, you were.
It might
You
not have been best friends, but it was enough to invite her to a house and she rubbing on your stomach. That's
right, you've let her into your home, into your personal space. She has known you clearly for a very long time.
a decade.
And either say nothing or acknowledge what it is. It's not throwing anybody under the bus. You just, this is what leadership's supposed to look like. You knew this was dangerous waters when you saw that, when the man picked her up and took her out. Wait a minute, girl, what you doing? You
I
didn't
actually
stop.
don't even think they did that, but that's another matter.
Okay.
She was
So,
dancing at his house on New Year's Eve.
okay, move on. Move on. Girl code.
This won't take long because we got to talk about real higher ed stuff. I swear
Okay.
it won't take long. Why is tell Woody this is what
Oh,
happened yesterday in court in the reality court show known as the YSL trial. YSL Woody, our favorite YSL member, says
yes.
he made up fake people to snitch on. If this don't get the trial thrown out, like how does this happen?
Here's
Let me read you a quote.
okay. Read it. Read the quote.
According to Woody, he made up two men named Lil Mike and Quiz. When questioned by the police, answering no when asked if they are real people, as officers never heard of them in connection to the case until Woody passed the blame for the particular incident onto the non-existent perpetrators. You invented a person out of thin air, correct? The questioning attorney asked Woody, who confirmed he did. You invented those people to take the heat off you and put it on a fictional character. Cut the show, take my mic. I'm done.
Let me tell you something. Woody is the gift that keeps on giving. First of all, it's a young man, uh, young black male with the old name of Woody. That should have told you everything you need to know. First of all, let's start there. That should have told you everything you need to know. Now, if there was ever a moment for the prosecution
To say I rest my case.
I'm done. We are dropping the charges. Let this man go home. Let this man, whatever, time
Because
served.
it throws a wrench in the whole case. Yeah.
You made I've seen a clip where Woody said, "You want me to remember which lie you want me to remember? I can't remember all the lies I told you. Like the lies I made up or the lies, like what you." And they're still asking questions, and I'm thinking, but this is your witness.
And they
Now
keep putting him on the stand.
40 years of law and order teaches us. 30 years combined, maybe 60 years of law and order experience. You know, I always say I have a degree in homicide from law and order, certificates in sex trafficking and sex investigations based on SVU. They have all taught us you better drop the like you have
Your case ain't
no
solid. Drop it.
drop the charges. Jack McCoy would have never.
Look,
Stone would have never.
The new Jack McCoy. Fitz would have never
gone to trial with this flimsy information.
It's wasting. I don't even pay taxes in Atlanta, and I feel like my taxes have been wasted.
It is. He is the gift. The only reason I would want the trial to continue, and we all know how this is going to end. There is no jury that can say definitively that this boy has done anything. There has been no evidence, and you're talking about lyrics. There was one moment, this is when Woody still had hair, that she was asking him about lyrics. He said, I don't know. He's sitting right there. We're talking about lyrics. You're not even asking about a specific lyric. You're asking about a song. You can't. You're doing ex parte. Baby, don't drop this. Drop this. Drop charges with prejudice. You cannot. There is nothing you can do. If he is, if what's his name? What the baby name that's on trial? For real. What's his name?
Young Thug.
If Young Thug did it, he got away with it because you're incompetent.
It's your fault.
So, and you put, and he said, and you can't get him because he's already done time for the crimes that you called him for.
Yeah.
He said, I've been taught all my life to lie to the police.
And at this point, I'm pretty sure he might have a case to sue them back.
He might. At this point, because of all the ex parte communications with judges and the prosecution, and y'all still couldn't do anything any better than this, there should be no judge that allows Woody to even stay on the stand.
Yeah.
The brother said, if I have blood pressure, you need to give me a break. I'm so tired of this. Leave me alone. Like, what comical, and it shows, you know, and for me, it's a segue into higher ed leadership. Like, some of y'all keep putting Woody on the stand. Some of y'all keep putting Woody on the stand. You keep following around the same programs that don't work. You keep moving the same incompetent directors and VPs around. They don't work. They go and they mess you up, and then they leave and go somewhere else. So you moving around the campus trying to find a fit because you know that grandmama and they've been there so long. Y'all keep putting.
You ain't got no case to really fire him. It's just like they should have never been hired because they
right.
So you stuck with them.
Or you move them up so they're not really hurting anybody for real. But they got a better salary doing nothing because they're incompetent. Y'all keep putting Woody on the stand. So that's gonna be the new thing. When y'all hit Woody. Keep putting Woody on the stand.
Woody got a new presidency.
Woody got another presidency. That's gonna be Keep putting Woody on the stand.
Mm-hmm. So, in our higher ed segment, we only have one real topic. We just got multiple angles. So we've been saving this who's in, who's out for a minute.
Right.
And so in the last few weeks, last week we talked about the clearing out of all of FAMU's cabinets, top down.
Yeah.
I think in that same week, Columbia University resigned. So there's there's this turnover in all the Ivy Leagues due to all the anti-Semitism testimony at the Capitol and the protests and all the policy that goes around it. There's been pressure from Harvard to Columbia, like Yale. Yeah. And unfortunately, it has been a lot of women that's taken the hit most. But Columbia's president resigned unexpectedly, and it was partially due to the universities, how they handle the protests, the testimony they gave at the Capitol. But that's just one that just happened in a most recent month. It wasn't two, but I think this is last month that this happened. And yeah, this is a trend. So I'm like, this is always going to be fresh. But now we're at the pack. I think I haven't heard any news of anybody resigning or any new people at this point. I actually just extended the contract of Benedict's president
again. Okay, all right,
good.
Yeah, that's
good.
Continuity. Yeah,
So there's 2 articles, which we're going to launch our newsletter one day. So we can give you all of these articles, right? So there's 2 articles, one that sprung up from Chronicle Higher Education and one that sprung up on HBCU. So one encompasses everybody, one kind of hits on it. So the one from Chronicle Higher Education talks about the increasingly difficult role of presidency, factors that contribute like political pressures, expectations for transformative leadership. I don't think boards know what that means and know how to select a candidate who can actually do that. Financial constraints, among other things. So that article highlights how we have to at some point, we got to rethink this. How are we picking our leaders? What are the competencies? How can boards educate themselves in order to pick the right candidate? Even looking at how do we look at the hiring process? Just because you fly them in, you do this interview at the board, that come on campus. What's the real work? How are we asking people on the ground? How is their leadership? Are we digging into them, their past deeper? Because we keep seeing keep putting Woody on the stand. This is how we transition. You keep doing this, but then they leave a trail of dead bodies.
Then the proclivities come out. Go ahead. Okay.
Yes. So
I just threw her off, y'all. I'm sorry. Listen, we've been on both sides. I mean, you know, at our institution, trying to get a presidential search done with fidelity, right? To get a contract signed, to follow the process. And I think a lot of people, at least on the ground, sometimes don't understand the process. That even when you retain a search firm, you have to allow them the process. Problem comes in when boards and campus constituents don't really understand or want to go by the process.
Yeah, or they pay all that money, search firm recommends a candidate and they choose somebody else.
Right. And I've been in that situation where I did a presidential search. I got to the top 3. I was very proud of that. My on-campus interview vibed well. And I was the only woman candidate in this pool. A lot of people also have high expectations for a president, but don't really understand where they're going, where they're coming from, right? So I remember getting one of the questions from a staff member was like, well, are you going to be coming to the basketball games and all that? I said, well, if I'm here, yeah. But if I'm supposed to be out there catching, my job is to raise funds for the institution. If I'm here, of course I will. But if I'm supposed to be out there chasing a check, I have to have a strong enough provost to run the day to day. Because my job is to make sure that we are financially solvent, right? And that we have stability. So a lot of people don't understand what the role of president is. And presidents are leaders and fundraisers. That's why you have, actually, sometimes I think that the provost office has more power even than the president, because they're the ones who do that. They're running the academic enterprise. So if you don't have a good if you don't have a good president, you better have a good provost.
Yeah.
And that's just, we've been there too. So but I don't think boards know. And the problem I think that happens is that when you have factions in boards, and factions who are making decisions, or they're not doing a search for real at all, so that there is no search. There's not even the appearance of a search. I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so we talked early on in the podcast episodes about the responses of these colleges to unrest and to difficult situations, because they're not also looking at someone who is a community builder in that way. And that you're making, because something is uncomfortable, we're making knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
And I think the that conflict was such a hotbed. Nobody did listening sessions. They're just at each other. And so a leader should have been doing all of these colleges, from USC to Columbia, to especially those institutions with high populations on either side. Where were the listening sessions? Where were the conversations? Be able to negotiate this in a country that has free speech, where you can be both against genocide, but then I also understand the right to protect yourself.
Yeah. But that's a skill that should be higher up on the charts when you have pressures from everybody, external, internal, everybody's fear, like staff, students. You have to be the leader that says, hold up,
just take a minute,
take a beat. Where, even if you got to put out the famous, we're investigating, we're listening, we're doing all of this just to hold people off. Step inside your office, have some time with yourself to be able to think rationally, ask the right questions, then take it to the team, challenge them to ask and answer the right questions, see it from all sides, and be able, like the book says, you got to think both fast and slow at the same time and make a decision.
Well, and see, I think a lot of people don't understand that crisis leadership is very different from leadership.
Yeah.
You almost need to have certificates in how to lead in a crisis. I'm sure there are some out there, but crisis leadership is very different. And we have been in both crisis, and then, the regular day-to-day leadership is great, and it's fun, and it's visionary and all of that. But crisis leadership, you've got to be able to be there to get it done, to put the right people together and in place, to have the hard conversations, and then understand how the people who are in conflict feel.
Yeah. That empathy.
If there is no empathy in that, it's not about, oh, well, this is bad press, but it's how you deal with this on the other side. What will history say about how you dealt with it, but as opposed to in the moment?
Yeah.
I don't think history will look kind on these knee-jerk reactions about having to deal with this situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that Vice President Harris, in addressing it for the DNC, did a good job. I'm with you on this front. I'm also with you on this front.
Yeah. Because you do have to have that duality mind. It doesn't have to be it's not a black and white thing all the time. The right answer is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
I thought she did do a really great job with showing that on both sides.
Yeah, I think that while we, I can tell y'all who I'm voting for, but I can't tell y'all who to vote for. But I think that is part of also leadership in terms of the legal mind that she has to know both sides of the argument. Because I can guarantee you, Harris wasn't putting Woody on the stand. No. She's not putting Woody on the stand. But you have Definitely to be able to kind of empathize and know both sides of the argument in order to be able to deal with it. Because people want to say, oh, well, the people who are talking the loudest get, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? And then you got this other side that may not be as loud, but they still have a voice and they still should be respected as such. But if you're making knee-jerk reactions, you're only responding to the squeaky wheels.
Yeah. I remember, and it's not a presidency kind of thing, but when I was in leadership and I was new, the university was in crisis. Mm-hmm. I was brought in to clean up enrollment and retention. It was on fire, and it had that state pressure about, are we taking away all your funding? You had the board pressure, we're embarrassed, are we going to close down? You had the pressure from they put pressure on the president put pressure on me. And I had, I thought I was shaking in my boots, but I knew it was the right thing. Like, you got to back up off me.
Right.
When give me some time so I can measure and then cut. Measure multiple times and then cut. Give me time to talk to who I'm going to talk to, observe who I'm going to observe, and then I'm going to cut. Because in the first 30 minutes of me saying, hey, I'm new, what am I supposed to do? First 30 minutes, everybody came to me saying, they need to go, she needs to go, everybody in that department needs to go. And I'm like, I don't even know what a bathroom mat is at this place.
Let me find my way to the bathroom. Right. Yeah.
And so you have to be able to say, let's all take a beat. We're not doing nothing. We're looking for ways to handle it, and we will handle it in a timely fashion. But I think that's something that has to be learned, practiced. It has to, for a president, it has to be ingrained. And I feel like even in these and I haven't sat in one, you've sat in more than I have. Is there a time, like being in the nonprofit world for a little bit, and I started to adopt a lot of practices. They do interviews and hiring practices very different than higher ed, because they don't have money to waste on a bum candidate. No. And we don't want to waste the candidate's time saying, you got me in here and it's not what I expected. So once I was in the ED, and I'm not going to change anything immediately. That's just me. I'm going to say, okay, show me what y'all do. And I had to experience the process myself. That was my first process when my parents was like, is this the same job you keep interviewing for? Yes. I had to do several things. I had to actually write an LOI. I actually had to put together a strategic plan. I actually had to do, that was 3 things I had to do before I even met with the board. So it was like, okay, these are the main competencies that they're looking for, and will evaluate me as ED. I'm fine with that. And I need to be fine with doing those tasks, because I'll be doing those tasks every day. Right. And so I feel like that it's a new concept that we should be introducing in higher ed, because the transition we went through, well, my numbers may be different than yours. I had five supervisors in 2.5 years.
I had 3.
Because there was 3 presidents in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And that turnover, we still know they haven't bounced back from that. And that's been over 10 years ago.
Girl. I think I remember, and when you talk about those things that you had to do for this one interview, when I was in the when I was assistant provost at Tougaloo, we were hiring for another administrative assistant in the office, and our senior administrative assistant had great guy Tony King, give him a shout out because he taught me so much. But when we were interviewing, his request was that all interviewees had to do a PowerPoint to make sure that they knew how to help us do our jobs, right? And so we don't have. I think that was a great idea to have you do all those things in preparation for this particular interview. If they thought that you were going to get to that level, like it's not, you send your letter, you send your CV, you do all those things, but when you get to a certain point, you ought to be able to do all of that. I think presidential searches, we have to answer questions. I think for that particular presidential search, you meet with the search firm, then you have another meeting with somebody else on the search with the search firm, and then you have a meeting with a few people in the search committee for the college, and then they decide if you go to the next level, to the on-campus visit. And I did have to answer, some questionnaire things and things like that, but they were relying, and I think a lot of times higher ed relies a little bit too much on the
CV,
which
the self-written CV,
but also on the fact that somebody tells you, yeah, I can do budget. They can't add.
But budget, your job as president is not to go and reconcile invoices,
right?
Or
that's not my
manage grants. Your job is to work with the CFO and to outline a budget for the year and establish priorities to push it and be able to identify funding sources.
But if I say I manage a budget of $127 million, oh, that's a lot. That's a big budget. That means that they can do it. The CFO is doing that.
But also that question for a presidency should be situational.
Right.
This the government has cut 25% from our budget. Show what you would do and provide a rationale for you redistributing the budget in order to retain X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
The faculty are in need of a raise. How would you go about instituting a raise? What questions would you ask? How would you do it? What time would you do it? Where would these resources come from? Right. That's the questions that should be. Yeah, I can do a budget.
Yeah, but how do
you're not even doing the budget? The CFO is presenting a budget to you, and you have to analyze it and say it's good, it's bad. Where's our enrollment management telling you this is our forecast? This is this. That's not the competency that we should measure. And I feel like boards have to rethink of what competencies and how we are how we're selecting presidents based on how they respond to certain situations.
But that also goes back to how we are constituting these boards. And
true that.
Right. So especially if they are appointed by governors, these should not be political friendly appointments. These should not be family reunion appointments. These should be people who are engaged, who actually are knowledgeable about higher ed practices, and who are community, or you have to have a very good mix and matrix of people on the board, and they will be able to want the training and follow through with the training to be able to hire a good president who is also a good person.
But yeah, they have to be good people, and their purpose has to be for the students and institution, not personal gain.
Right. And so most of the time, when I see a CV where somebody has done all of these wonderful things, and they're here for a couple of years and they move on, and they're here for a couple of years and they move on, and they have all of, it's a 20-something page CV. When did you really engage? When did you, or were you on your trajectory? And then they keep passing Woody up the line. Because they don't really have any definable results. They have, because they weren't there long enough. And the people who were there when they were there are no longer there. So you can't really do all those things because there's no sustainability at the institution because you keep moving them around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up some stats. So the article that we're referencing is Crisis by Any Other Name, where I feel like this is like a yearly thing that they do. But they looked at other research. They looked at a New York Times article, Anyone Want to Be a President? Where a quote is, "You cannot pay me enough to be college president," which is I have had, maybe want to I don't know. We'll see what the future holds for me. But here are the themes out of all of those articles. Though a prestigious and important position and a well-compensated role, it has become incorruptibly fraught with political considerations, both inside and outside of campus. Case in point, in Louisiana, I hate to think about it. Another way I'm protecting my peace. I just can't even think. So the governor has mandated that all athletes be present while the national anthem is played. I was surprised. So the athletic director basically was like, "We ain't doing nothing."
Shut it down. You want to shut it down? Let's shut it down.
He said our players will remain on the field will remain in the locker room until the time as what we always had. And but because it really came from Kim Mulkey and the basketball team.
Right.
Because I think because all the star players are Black, it was more targeted, was because in their last championship game, they weren't on the court and somebody brought that up. And the president quickly, no thought to it, put out a mandate that all student athletes must be on the court during the national anthem. It's only a matter of signing respect. And if they don't, you should take away their scholarships. So LSU, the flagship, was like, we not changing. We're not doing that.
And they have enough booster support that will support that.
Bam.
But when you're making that kind of knee-jerk reaction, targeted or not, when you're making those kind of mandates without having conversations, you didn't have a conversation about why they were in the locker room. They don't have to be standing there for what? Right? This is, first of all, separation of church and state. Really, at state games, they probably shouldn't even be playing some things. So, but that's fine, whatever. But you're still making these knee-jerk reactions, mandates. That's just not okay.
No.
And then, of course, when you're making that kind of money, you will fold to political pressure, because if you're making upwards of $500,000, sometimes $1 million for a presidency, yeah, your boss tells you to do something, you're going to do it, as opposed to saying, now, wait a minute, now, we can't, you have to understand why they do X, Y, and Z. This was not against the national anthem. This is not a political statement. They are in preparation for the game.
And guess what they was doing? Well, at least Kim Mulkey's case, they were in the locker room praying, as they always do before a game.
There you go.
So no, I'm not gonna get into that. Number 2 thing was inherent administrative ability is far less consequential than one's timing in accepting a role, and that timing is out of your hands. These are the things that why people don't want to be president no more. The lust and allure of an executive post belie the potential trauma awaiting those who pursue it, such that the experience may erode one's confidence in higher education and society. Yes.
Yay. Check, my check.
This is why we're here.
That's completely, like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I mean, that I could have written that line myself. Like, I'm over it. I would have.
So we had to take a step away from it, and stepping back to it is when I say I've had to work through things, even with just going back and targeting higher ed, getting into first year experiences, reconnecting with higher ed, going to conferences.
Yeah.
I have trauma.
Yeah.
I have total trauma because I know there are certain beliefs that are still there, and I have to confront them, and I have to work through that every day.
That's where, someone asked me why won't I pursue it, and I do occasionally, but or even just to think about it. But you're right. We had a great deal of trauma. I've done the work, even when it wasn't my work to do. But at this point, I can't work with or for a group of people who do not care about the students and who want to play politics.
Yeah.
That is, and who think it's a game to mistreat people. If you want me to be the leader of your institution, it's not and I seek wise counsel. I cannot, if your first thing is I want you to get rid of this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, because they did, why? I have to know why. What are they doing? And then of course my question is, well, if they were that bad, why didn't you do it before I got here? Why would you bring me into that space to make me do something or to request that of me? And then of course put my job on the line. Well, we're telling you to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but I need to know why. I don't play politics with the students' lives. I don't play politics with faculty and staff, because they have lives outside of that. And you can't get the best out of people when you lead them in fear. And there's always a certain level of anxiety that comes along with a new president or in the presidency itself, because now that everything is on social media, now that everybody's got opinions, and they feel, behind the little camera lens, they can say whatever they want to, and it'll go the moment of when your slip is showing, everything gets caught up. Right? Everything goes viral, but nobody talks about the hard work of your faculty or your staff or your students who are doing good things, because those aren't the viral moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got to deal with that on a daily basis. No. And especially if you don't have support of a competent board. Mm-mm. And y'all keep putting Woody on the stain.
Mm-hmm. Here's a few more facts to keep on your mind. So I feel like the elite institutions have been a target this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm setting the context for these are the facts for the HBCUs.
Yeah.
Probably that you have more stability at state institutions these days, primarily white institutions, state. Mm-hmm. So the report that we're taking this information from did a survey, or kind of took a look at all the HBCUs in 2023, 21 of the 32 presidential. So there was 32 presidential transitions in this last year. Is that you keep count? Is that a third of all institutions? It's 110 now, 110 HBCUs?
No, it's 107. I think it's down to 104. So
that was about a third, roughly a third.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 21 of them were male, indicating a significant gender disparity, which is why celebrating this Dr. Artis at Benedict College was a real leap, as she's in her second term. Only 3 of the male presidents and chancellors were replaced by women, and more women were replaced by men. That's another conversation for another day. Only 12 of 32 lasted longer than 5 years, while 16 survived less than 3. The average tenure for HBCU president in the last year stands approximately, Jesus Christ, they did it in months, 54 months or 4.5 years.
Wow.
And if you break that down by gender, a woman's tenure was 41 months, a men's tenure was 61 months. Both lag behind the national average of almost 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Well, again, uh, the days of a 20 to 30-year president are gone. I think artists might actually make it. Because
there's a couple people that might what's the Quinn College Quinn
yeah, he might
not Percy Quinn, that's a part. What's the name of that college? I should be, because it's the AME college.
Paul Quinn.
Paul Quinn. I was like, Percy Quinn is in Parkland, Mississippi.
And they're doing very well.
Paul Quinn, I think, will make, because they're giving him time.
Yeah.
They're giving him time.
He pulled that institution single-handedly from the brink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they gave him the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They gave him time to cultivate relationships and to bring that institution back. But I think part of that is, I don't think you mentioned it. It may not even be in this article. And the reason some of these presidencies are so short is because they keep hiring old people.
True that.
I would love to see it, and not that I'm not being ageist, but there is an issue if you have somebody there's such a gap between student experience and the presidency, or you're trying to get them caught up if they're not engaged and stay abreast of the trends of the culture, as well as higher ed trends and best practices, where they still remember when they had to bring your own paper to the schoolhouse on a typewriter.
But even old leadership trends
Right.
in leadership, you're leading a 3-4 generations under you.
Right. I mean, I think that's problematic. I think that is also problematic. If you get somebody who might be, I would say, once you get past 70, you're not gonna have a presidency that long. You're still young enough to have a presidency. You're still seasoned enough to have a presidency, and the stamina. But by the time 4 or 5 years, you may not be. But I also think, I mean, that's an age part of it. But I also think that these short tenures are because boards are giving in to political pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And people get burned out so early and so quickly because there's so much political pressure. There's so much, in particular HBCUs that are most likely tuition driven and not endowment driven. You got to beat the bushes, and everybody's fighting for, particularly in the South, you're fighting really for the same students.
Yeah. And the last two pieces of facts, public, this is, I don't want to say a no-brainer. Presidency of public institutions have a longer tenure, almost 2 years, twice as long, at public versus private. So private people, presidencies at private institutions are a little bit shorter than those at public because of that financial pressure to raise the money without so many public funds. And then lastly, to me, this isn't a difference in time. Presidents with previous executive level experiences have 5 years, have a 5-year tenure than those who did not, which is 4 years. That's no difference to me. In my science brains, it's not a difference.
I think
a year different on average.
No, I don't think it's any difference. I don't think that. I mean, it's one academic year,
and I think the ones that have the previous experience be like, I ain't gotta take this.
Right. I'm gonna make this money, save this, stack this check, pay off my house, and I'm gonna well.
Yeah, I know how to write it out.
Because they've learned, but it takes so much for a first-time president to get in the loop. So you got to go through the loops of who's making the calls for you and who's what programs are you going for leadership development, just to have it's all a game, as opposed to really trying to find the best person for the job, because the best person for the job could be sitting right there, but they may not have the political backing of the phone call. And then then let's go back and look and see how many of those phone calls actually worked out.
None.
Nope. Or so we've got some real issues in higher ed to think about. And here's the other part of that. The saddest part of that is that our students are always watching, because students know the tea before we do.
Yeah.
Students know what's going on. They know because they work in the offices. They're like the little invisible minions that work and work studies and they're research assistants, and y'all not paying attention to them.
Yeah, those are little, what did they call them on Game of Thrones? The birds?
The little birdies. They are they listen and they talk and they tell. I used to, if I wanted to find something out about what was going on, you just ask a child. Well, ask one of those children. You just ask one of those students. They'll tell you. They know when somebody, and they will call it out. Oh, the president's never here. He didn't do anything. Just like they do with faculty. Oh, she never holds class. She never holds class. They won't say it about me. She doesn't hold class. She doesn't, he never, he
never in his office hours.
Right. He high. They tell it all. They tell it all. Just like your children go to school and they tell everything. But, so the problem is that we're doing this sort of friend network and trying to get into a presidency, which is why, at this point in my life and career, you had to call me.
Yeah.
Because you have to want the person that I bring, which is I'm going to work hard and probably harder than the people who have had them before. But I'm going to, though they may not always agree with the decisions I make, but they will respect the fact that they know that if I make a decision, I'm making it because that is the best result that I think at the time, and you'll respect it. And I'll be, you got to have presidents who are willing to say, hey, y'all, I thought it worked. I thought it was going to work. It didn't. Let's try something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to have somebody who is intuitively empathetic and self-aware enough and self-assured enough to be able to say, my bad. We got a lot of problem with a lot of presidents that won't do that.
Yeah.
They're going to keep putting Woody on this thing.
Yeah.
Woody got more VP positions. Woody's in some provost positions, some presidencies. Woody's everywhere.
And we know Woody who said, I can't recollect what none of them.
I can't recall.
I don't know where that money went to. I didn't know.
I don't recall. Woody's lied. Woody be lying. Woody tell you, yeah, I've had a chair. Tell me, well, I lied. Just say I didn't say it.
Well, we're not gonna add that other piece of information to it because he was somewhere else doing that.
Just lie. It just tell him I didn't say it. What are you? So I don't know around the world, but to your other point about the private HBCU and the tenure, because they put so much pressure on the president to go raise money, right? You want them to raise money. It's a private institution. They don't get a state allotment.
Yeah.
That kind of pressure to make sure that people eat, that make sure that you have what you need. You guys, for most of those HBCUs that are under the SAC COC, they've got to make sure that those documents are clean and an audit, and you can fund your academic. That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody and not give them at least time.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if you're going to give a student 6 to 8 years to get a baccalaureate degree, you ought to be able to give a president time to build relationships. You ought to give a president time from 6 to 8 years to really affect some change at your institution. If y'all gonna give the children 6 to 8 years to get a baccalaureate degree,
if they're not wreaking havoc on campus in the first,
if they're not. Now, I have known presidents that they never should have been hired, but okay, fine, you hired them. That was, but when you realize that they're not the human beings to lead the institution, then that's where you have to draw the line. You got to save the institution, and the institution cannot be no one person, rather, No one person is bigger than the institution, and particularly for HBCU.
Yeah. So as we close, what are your final thoughts? Any final thoughts on this discussion? Or
as I just said, if you can, if boards give new people a chance, give good people a chance, then I think you'll see a difference in higher ed leadership. I think you'll see a difference. Stop putting Woody on the stand.
Yeah.
I think I think if pop culture teaches us, there's a reflection of us, that's the best thing I can tell you. Stop putting Woody on the stand. And give good people time to develop and cultivate, and don't see kindness as weakness. Don't see empathy as weakness. Because those people know how to make the decisions, but they want to be right in those decisions. At least that's how I would be. Other than that, yeah, stop putting Woody on the stand.
Yeah.
Jobs as well. You don't always have to, everybody doesn't have to be right. Just stop putting Woody on the stand.
My final thoughts is that we have to rethink. We got to rethink a whole lot of stuff in higher ed, which is why we said allegedly higher.
Right.
We definitely need to rethink of what leadership looks like in higher education, what it sounds like, how it acts. And there has to be another way. There has to be a list of competencies that are non-negotiable, validated competencies. And once we start to do that, we'll start to see the profile of a successful college president changing. Yeah. But it has to start at the board, and it has to start with the search firms. It has to start there, but we need to build a different profile. And right on time, Dr. Jackson's camera freezes.
And yours as well, yes. You're frozen as well.
I'm moving on my side. We'll see. But thank you all for joining. We're going to end there because it seems like our software has shut down. Thank you so much for joining Allegedly Higher. Share this podcast with your colleagues or your friends. DM us, like us on Facebook, Instagram. Let us know what you want to talk about, your thoughts from this episode. And always like and subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this. And until next time, take care.
All right. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. This episode was sponsored by Holistic Higher Ed Solutions, committed to enhancing student success. From coaching to planning, our practitioners empower institutions. Ready to transform? Visit holisticheredsolutions.com and let's revolutionize higher ed together. Be sure to subscribe, review, and join us next time.